Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, as per your respective time zone. On behalf of entire Evosys Managed Service System, we'd like to welcome you all to 22B Global Human Resource Advisory webinar session. So we'll begin with today's session. This important session is to keep you fully synchronized with the new features and functionalities as a part of this quarterly release which Oracle provides. My name is Hardik Patel, and I'm an operations manager here at Evosys Managed Services Department. Today, I'm your host for this session, and I'm glad to introduce my colleague Apurva Kale, who's part of our vast HCM team at Evosys. Today, she'll take us through all the global human resource updates for 22B quarter release. Today's session is planned for around 45 minutes, and we'll make sure that we also leave some time to answer all your questions you may have. We also have another team member to take all your questions you may have. You can ask through the chat or question panel, and they'll be happy to answer you during the session and even at a later stage. Before we move to today's agenda, I would like you to go through a disclaimer. We would like to convey you our approach towards Oracle updates in a very simpler method. We'll be taking you through vital analysis for the 22B updates done by our experts, which will help you incorporating new features and updates easily into your system. We'll also sync you on any bugs or known issues if there are any. It's good to have an interactive session, so please do ask any questions you may have, as we mentioned earlier, through chat or question panel, and we'll try and answer them as quickly as we can. This is to give you a glimpse on how we have crafted the structure of this session. So, list of new features coming into 22B, detailing on features so you get a brief understanding on what all new features are about. Next one is what are the business benefits and important takeaway for you as a decision maker. There are 4 important components where we have done in-depth analysis of features which we're going to present to you today. The first one is impact level analysis, which demonstrate the impact on end user. If it's a low impact, then regression testing can be avoided. If it's a high impact, then we need to opt for regression testing. Second one, which is we all are aware that there are some features which are by default auto-enabled by Oracle, and there are some which we need to opt for. And the third one highlights the nature of the feature. There would be certain configuration which may be required, or some can be used without any changes. And the last one, which is a quick win. This term which we used to simply convey that what is ready to use by investing minimum amount of time and what requires significant amount of time and effort to make use of this feature. Before we start today's agenda, we would like to know, with the help of a quick poll, that which industry does your organization belongs to. As you can see, the poll on the screen, using which you can let us know. Thank you so much. We'll be closing the poll, and with this, I'll be handing it over to my colleague Apurva, and she'll take you to today's session. Thank you so much. Over to you. Unmute yourself, and stage is all yours, Apurva. Thank you.
Thank you, Hardik, for an appealing introduction. Greetings for the evening, everyone. Hi, I'm Apurva, and I will be taking you through the features with an understanding and a clear window for each of them. So here, let's look into analytics and statistics provided the latest release 22B. We can here observe a count for corresponding features that will be listed further. There are 41 features which are specific to Global HR module, and other 7 features will be the common ones across the HCM, out of which 21 will be quick wins under default category, and other 13 quick wins will be under opt-ins. Remaining rest will be 6 features, which may or may not need time and effort to make in use. We can see features are further categorized into quick win considering default with no configuration, quick win considering opt-ins, and OTBI enhancements. Let's look into the default features with no configuration needed and a quick wins. First on mention, configure text for buttons and links for journey task. Here, while a user proceeds on making changes under display settings during any task setup for a journey, now we do have a new flexibility on the same screen to rename action labels. In the image provided, here we can see current label names. It may be checklist or journey can be renamed to the one suitable. For example, changing the label name save as draft to save for later. User has a benefit to personalize labels in order to suit an organization's business requirement. Worth to mention, support for distinct languages while renaming any action label is introduced as well. Moving on to next feature, employee can view journey tasks assigned to others. Here, employees now have an ability to see progress of other task performance in an assigned journey. As we can see on screen image, a user cannot expand or act on others' assigned tasks, which is surely a quick win. Moving on to the next feature, task description available in journey task selection LOV. Having less possible impact on the system, the feature makes it easier to find relevant tasks, meaning in the provided image, task selection list of values in the task library. Now we'll display the task description. You can see the feature is enabled when you select any task from task library in order to add the same while creating or editing the required journey. Moving on to the next feature, update assigned journey and task attributes based on modified journey template. Now here, user can run the mentioned process on the screen to synchronize the changes, which reduces effort to manually update all assigned journeys and tasks. A tip to consider that this feature isn't supported for basic e-sign, embedded learning, document, questionnaire, and configurable form. Also, you can always use HDL or REST API to allocate or remove any task. However, the remaining changes will be synchronized itself due to this new feature. Moving on to the next feature, Expire assigned journey task. Now in the provided image, you can notice we do have an option to enable expiry. Therefore, when there are less tasks open, the overall page performance also improves. The impact is negligible, and to be noted, the task expiry feature is applicable for both required and optional tasks. A great benefit of the mentioned feature is that it removes the need to manually mark any task as closed. Moving on to the next feature, control keyword search on journey pages using enhanced criteria. When a user will search any journey task or person, the results will be based on the starts with operator. For example, if you type in ONBO in the search tab, the search list will result all the journeys, tasks, and persons starting with ONBO. As for us, on the screen it's onboarding. If you would navigate to manage administrative profile, you can find mention profile option is set to I by default, which has already enabled the feature automatically. Feature is mainly introduced to improve the performance. Moving on to the next feature. Use document included in document task setup instead of creating copy. Let me focus on to the red mark. Don't copy, use source document option. This will make sure a copy of the document isn't created at the time of task assignment, thereby improving performance. The feature is applicable only for document type tasks created in a contextual journey. Here, contextual journey is nothing but a journey which enables employees to interact with the task in order to complete the same. The feature eliminates the need to create a copy of the document and in turn improves the performance. Moving on to next feature, additional seeded journey for benefits. I would say this is one of the awaiting feature from Oracle. Let me zoom in for you. New seeded journey for benefits has been introduced as listed in the image. The list are the tasks in the benefits seeded journey. Also, as visible on the screen, the templates begin with Oracle hyphen and will be available in draft status. But yes, the seeded journeys aren't editable. You can duplicate a template and modify as per your business requirements. Indeed, a suitable feature to minimize configuration efforts and increase efficiency. Moving on to the next feature, availability of assignment identifier in move to HR action. Previously, we did not have a feasibility to streamline allocation of tasks specifically for journeys and checklist assignment. Why? Due to move to HR action. Now, in 22B, person assignment identifier has been introduced, which will help us achieve the 4 points mentioned on the screen. The move to HR action is applicable only if you use Oracle Recruiting Cloud. The feature enables you to correctly determine the performer and task assignment. Moving on to the next feature. Pre-fill document record flex-fill attributes by scanning an attachment. Again, one of the most awaited features of Oracle, as previously we did not have an option to scan flex-fill attributes and was only able to do so for seeded ones. You can save time by not having to manually type the values for the document record fields. As shown in the image, you can find an option to extract the scan details. Also, you can add another attachment as well. By using this feature, you can improve the authenticity of the data by having users scan the values instead of manually entering them. Moving on to the next feature. Control display of attachment section on document records page. You have the option to restrict users from uploading attachments to document types that don't need any supporting documents. As shown in the image, you can now use minimum attachments attribute to control the display of the attachment section to the document record page. Obviously, if the attribute value is set to -1, the attachment section will be hidden. It's a low impact feature, yet there are some of the highlights. It's only applicable for transactions done in the UI. It's not applicable when you use HCM data loader and REST API. Worth to mention that you can enable this feature even for existing document types. Moving on to the next feature, track how document records are created. So this feature does the tracking of the method used to create the document record. The method which will be tracked can be any possible outcome from the list provided on the screen. Also, the listed will be available as attributes in OTB as subject area in a future release, thus making it easier and faster. Moving on to the next feature, enhanced deep links for document records. So what's a deep link? The deep link simply is used to directly access application pages without additional clicks or navigation. Here, now we have a feature to include deep links into document records. The two newly added parameters, P category and P document of records ID, are mentioned on the screen. I will give here one example for a simple understanding. Now, URL links to open any certain document of record can be distributed outside of Fusion application and allow a specific user to open the document of record without any navigations. So now in this example, we do get an ease of navigating and accessing document record pages from external applications, thereby saving time and improving user experience. Moving on to next feature, replace document record attachments using HTL. As simply mentioned, you can now overwrite an existing attachment for a document record with a new attachment using HCM data loader. You need to note that the overwriting happens only if the name of the existing attachment and the new attachment is the same. This feature is not supported in the UI. The UI still requires you to first delete the old attachment file and then upload the new file. Moving on to the next feature, payroll section in changed assignment flow. Previously, while using responsive page for changing the assignment details, we did not have an option to consider payroll details as well. In 22B upgrade, you can notice newly added section for payroll detail has been introduced. Users are benefited to manage the payroll details for a worker's assignment as part of a change assignment transaction, thus making it easier and faster. Moving on to the next feature, direct reports section added to employment info page. I'll say this is one of the most feasible feature introduced by Oracle. You now can view the direct reports for a manager when you view the employment info page. The feature is a low impact, already enabled one. So the image visible on the screen is a section controlled by the application and is displayed only if direct reports exist for the manager. Moving on to the next feature. Enter document records for family and emergency contacts. Users can now add document records for workers' contacts from the family and emergency contacts responsive page. The page is newly introduced. The improvement is a low impact as well as making the use of system a more time saving. Moving on to next feature. Transaction Design Studio improvements for personal info responsive pages. As shown in the image, you can now hide or display specific flexible attributes, comments, and attachments. Display of the pages using Transaction Design Studio, and it's easier to create and maintain. So the improvement can be achieved in the list of responsive pages provided on the screen. Display of the comments and attachments and flexibles can be easily managed through the feature. Moving on to next. Simulate person, area of responsibility, and share information approval rules. We already know this kind of feature, wherein we do perform simulation for the approval rules to be made into further action. This new feature is similar to that. You can easily fix errors and incrementally build the approval rule conditional logic and see the impact of the change without having to recreate and submit the new transaction as well. The provided list in the images, we can see the feature has been extended in the following responsive pages as well, where the user can use the simulation feature. You can simulate approval rules for failed or pending transaction. You cannot simulate approval rules for completed transaction. An important tip to consider, it will be that the feature isn't enabled for any in-flight transactions that you submitted before upgrading to release 22B. And it does not impact existing transactions on upgrade. Moving on to the next feature, generate DBIs for Great Legislative EFF. The Great Legislative Extensible Flexible DBIs are only available to fast formulas. The types which support grade as a context, such as example compensation person selection formula type. It's a low impact feature. With this enhancement, you can use grade legislative extensible flex fills in your fast formulas. Moving on to next feature, additional configurable sections for position details, job details, and location details in Transaction Design Studio. As visible in the second image, the position details, job details, and location details are added as additional configurable sections. You can configure this section using configure save options and regions for each action in the Transaction Studio as per the first image on the screen. This feature enables users to hide or unhide sections that aren't required, in turn improves the user experience. Moving on to next feature. So the screenshot is applicable to the feature I just mentioned. Here, improve ship to location list of values. As visible in the image, the ship to location field in the location responsive pages now shows only those locations that are marked as ship to site locations. It's a low impact feature that reduces the errors while selecting ship to location. Moving on to the next feature. Enhanced My Team under Workforce Directory Management. Now here, two new things have been introduced. We are provided with an easy navigation from and to My Team page using the back button, and also provided with new options to sort position data. To be noted, the back button is added to the desktop version only. The feature is available by default on the upgrade. Let's look into the features which are opt-ins and quick wins as well. Moving on to OAuth 2.2 enable for DocuSign integration with journeys. The feature in simple words is nothing but a legacy authentication can be now used in integration with journeys. In order to use the feature, you need to set the mention profile option on screen to Y. By default, it's set to N. This means legacy authentication is used, meaning the OAuth authentication for stage is used. If by default the profile option is set to Y, this means the production OAuth authentication is used in production environments. Feature simplifies and improves security of DocuSign integration. Moving on to trigger journey task based on activation criteria. As visible in the image, user will be able to set an activation criteria. In case an employee satisfies the criteria, then the selected journey task will be triggered for that employee. This feature is applicable to both journeys and checklist. You need to enable the activation criteria to create task page in order to use the feature. Moving on to next feature, analytics task type in guided journeys. As visible on the screen, we can now use analytics task type in the guided journey. So what that means? The analysis created in the OTBI can be integrated into the journey task page where user can directly give required inputs and get a displayed results of the analysis with corresponding inputs then and there. Also, based on the complexity of the analysis, there could be a delay in rendering the output. The feature gives us an ability to display OTBI analysis on selected responsive transaction pages. Moving on to contextual journeys to orchestrate business processes. Now, what is a contextual journey? A contextual journey is nothing but a journey which enables employees to interact with journeys based on how they completed their task. For example, timely training and videos during a journey to help employees make the right decisions. One example as shown in the images on the screen, we can have contextual journeys considering a transfer task. You need to enable contextual journeys using the new mention profile option. Set the profile option to Y. Feature enables you to orchestrate the different activities that need to be done as a part of the business process. Moving on to the next feature, guided journeys to assist complex HCM flows. So features show how tutorials can be used to provide guidance in order to complete a certain task. For example, as shown in the image, tasks to help a line manager transfer an employee, where you can see a tutorial can be helpful. To enable guided journeys, set profile option to Y. At least possible impact feature, I will say, it is introduced to provide guidance to the users in the context of the transactions they perform based on their role. Moving on to the next feature, embedded learning task type in journeys. Now one can create a learning content and associate it further to the requested content type when configuring a journey task. Worth to mention, a task performer can click on done only after they view the complete video in an embedded learn video task. Also, only after they have clicked the see document link in an embedded learn document task. Using this task type, you can embed learning items that will help a task performer in their journey. For example, similar to our previous slide explained, learning video can be a part of an employee's onboarding journey. Moving on to the next feature, autocomplete rule for address business object. As shown in the image, data entry validations for the Kuwait legislation are now been introduced. Whatever user enters in the address line 3 can now be validated. The new rule will validate the free text entered in the address line 3 of the Kuwait address type. As a business benefit, feature gives a control to customers to extend their existing application by creating their own rules without relying on Oracle development to implement it. Moving on to the next feature, autocomplete rule for person legislative information business object. As shown in the image, a new rule has been designed for UK legislation. Now, we have person legislative information business object in order to validate the TPS temporary NI number field in the UK person legislative information. To enable this feature, as well as the autocomplete rule, you need to log a service request. Moving on to next feature, autocomplete support for when and why business object when creating or editing a job offer. Unlike previous, now we have new additional data entry validations for fields in when and why section of create job offer and edit job offer flows. Let me give you an example here. You can create an autocomplete rule to default the proposed state, as shown in the create job offer flow on the screen. Now, when you will be creating a specific autocomplete rule for job offer, let's say for example, create offer, edit offer, or copy offer, you must use the corresponding HCM params listed in the following table. Why? To conditionally include or exclude a specific part of the rule. Feature indeed gives a great benefit to the business. Moving on to the next feature. Evaluation criteria available in position and job responsive flows. You now have an option to select evaluation criteria and fill the further populated working conditions field in the responsive job and position flows, as shown in the image. Yeah, also a tip to consider. Addition of the working conditions field will enhance your evaluation data if you use the Hay system. Using the feature, you can save time so that an evaluation system is selected by default on the position and job responsive pages, which you can always achieve by specifying a default evaluation system for your organization. Moving on to the next feature, enhanced directory organization chart under workforce directory management. As the image depicts, person type can be made visible in the organization hierarchy cards. Now to remember, you can display only 8 attributes at a time in an employee card. A very low impact feature with no such configuration needed, but enabling. Moving on to the next feature, salary section added to employment info page. You can now view the salary of a worker in the newly added read-only salary section of the employment info page. The salary section is hidden out of the box. To enable the section in the responsive flow, you must use HCM Experience Design Studio. Moving on to the next feature, additional compensation section added to employment info page. As the image suggests, we have a newly added read-only additional compensation section of the employment info page. You can hide or display various attributes of the additional compensation section through, obviously, HCM Experience Design Studio. Let's look into the OTBI enhancements. Moving on to additional attributes in assignment event real-time subject area. As mentioned, assignment status code, HR status, and pay status as new attributes are added to the assignment events details folder. It's the least possible impact feature introduced in order to enhance your reporting on assignment event details with the addition of new attributes which are related to assignment status. Moving on to enhanced common dimensions. The on-screen images consist of new attributes which are added across all HCM OTBI subject areas. You can improve the reporting on common dimensions with the inclusion of additional attributes in the location, job, position, and person address. One of the lowest impact feature ready to be used. Moving on to the next feature, new subject area, general survey reporting. User can now include the OTBI reporting with a new subject area which will help to report on general survey related questionnaire responses. For details about creating and editing such reports, one can always visit Oracle Help Center. It's a low impact feature considering a fresh subject area has been introduced. Moving on to next feature, renamed attributes in assignment subject areas. The changes are done in the following folders mentioned on screen. So here, the only change is the change in the name. That's how it's one of the lowest possible impact feature. Moving on to the next feature, new attributes in HCM integrations real-time subject area. You can now enhance your reporting on the HCM integrations real-time subject area with the addition of new attributes which are related to the data loader. The HCM integrations real-time subject area has added the following attributes as shown in the image. A low impact feature indeed. Let's look into the features which are common across the entire HCM module. Moving on to autocomplete rules for HCM Experience Design Studio enhancements. So previously, there was no option to have an ability to enhance the HCM Experience Design Studio. Now, with this introduced feature, one can use new rules in autocomplete rules for Studio in order to have more capabilities for global human resources, goal management, and recruiting. It allows your organizations to adjust quickly with HR compliance without relying on new releases. Moving on to next feature. Transaction Design Studio for HCM Experience Design Studio enhancements. As shown in the image, new feature will now allow your users to save their transactions at any point of time. The feature will also work now on the following pages mentioned as well. One of the most important feature where one can save their work at any point of time and resume later where they left off. Moving on to the next feature. Enhancements to approvals and notifications. Confirming the details mentioned on the screen, by leveraging the enhancement, you gain the advantages such as to send appropriate alert messages to various users so that they can resolve failed transactions. Also, locate easily the transactions that you want to test your approval rules on and modify your approval rules. Moving on to next feature, secured business objects now available to business users. Your business users now can bulk load data for the learning object mentioned on screen using spreadsheets. You need to enable the feature to be in use. Also, for the mentioned learning object, the template security automatically defaults the setting where data is uploaded as the session user. Now, for existing templates based on this object, you can update the template configuration and set the user type to session user. A quick win feature indeed. Moving on to the next feature, spreadsheet template design changes. Now, when there is a need to load bulk data, we do have an ability to use a spreadsheet template suitable with your requirement. You can use template validation in designing of any template where you can now validate and save in one step. Also, you can duplicate attributes for a child record. Then and there, the attributes from the parent record will be automatically added. It's a low impact and ready to use feature in the list. Moving on to the next feature, business object enhancements. Running through the images provided, user can now extend the bulk loading capabilities. With this mentioned new and extended objects available with HCM Data Loader and HCM Spreadsheet Data Loader. Moving on to the next feature. Last but not the least, HCM Data Loader must be used for all payroll objects. Previously, we used Payroll Batch Loader in order to load all the payroll related objects. Now, to be noted, Oracle has decommissioned the same. But no worries, as we now do have a support for a single powerful loader for bulk loading and maintaining data, that is HCM Data Loader. For that, like what you to know is, HCM Data Loader will be now the only tool for data loading and update any task. With gratefulness towards all, I would like to hand over the presentation to Mr. Hardik Patel for the closing comments.
Thank you, Purva, for the wonderful insights. Before we move to the Q&A part, we would quickly like to note down your area of interest with a quick poll so that we can craft more value-based content going forward. So on your screen, you can see, and we need your quick help letting us know your area of interest, whether it's technology innovation, managed services, value-based analytics, which helps people in accelerating the business, and the cloud transformation. And if you need any information related to any of these, you can reach out to the dedicated project managers. And if you're not an Evosys client, you can also write to us on business@evosysglobal.com. So we'll be closing the poll in 5 to 10 seconds. And before you leave us all, I'll be closing the poll now. And before you leave us all, we would like to keep you informed that we'll be sending you an email wherein you'll find a link, which is going to be a permanent link. So any upcoming webinars and also today's webinar, you'll see the test scripts, the presentation PDF, and the recording link of today's session. Everything will be there on a single page. If you bookmark it, even the upcoming series will also get loaded there as well. So please look out for an email in coming days. I'll be closing the poll now. And before you leave us, we would like to quickly know that how did you experience today's session on the scale of 1 to 5? And that will help us improve it even better and to serve you even more accuracy. Thank you once again for your time, and we'll be sending you a thank you email, as I said earlier, and wherein you can find the recording test scripts, which you can pass it to your colleagues, and you can access it from the single page itself. And if you do have any questions regarding today's session, you can again reach out to the project managers. And if you need any specific session or connect with our HCM experts or team leaders, we can arrange that for you without a fail. So with that, we'd like to again thank you everyone for today's time. And I'll be closing the poll now for the feedback on how we did today. And based on this, we'll have to improve going forward. And before you leave us, again, we'd like to show you that there are some upcoming sessions. But before that, let's have a look if there are any Q&A. We do not have any questions today, but if you'd like to note down, we have upcoming sessions. And if you want to pass the message to your colleagues and team members, they can register for the upcoming sessions, which is workforce management, finance, HR help desk, supply chain, talent management. On your screen, you can see now benefits and compensation coming on the 11th of May. So please do register and be part of this important session. Thank you once again.